Probationary no more, and hashtag HFY. Story closing parenthesis ... chapter 1. The colony, nobody mentions ... they called it Kestrel, reach on old maps. When anyone still bothered to print maps on council charts? It was a footnote, a pale dot on the edge of shipping lanes. A minor Varyari colony with a thin atmosphere, stubborn crops. In a population too small to threaten anybody's budgets, it had no famous minerals. No ancient ruins. No strategic choke point. It had windstorms that sandblasted paint off rooftops, and a sky the color of bruised steel. It had people, though. Real people. Children who learned to count by rationing water. Mechanics who kept harvest crawlers running with spare parts and prayer. Families who planted trees knowing they wouldn't be tall until their grandchildren were old. Governor Telemaris stood on the roof of the administrative dome and watched the sunrise. Smear gold across dust up below, the colony was waking. Lights blinked on in rows. The slow heartbeat of a place that refused to die quietly her aid. A young Varyari named Lon climbed up with the careful steps of someone carrying bad news. Governor, he said, trying for steadiness. Long-range pickets confirm it. Tella didn't turn. Say it anyway. A pirate fleet? Not a cluster. Not a raiding pack. He swallowed. A fleet. Heading straight for us. Silence held for a moment, thick as frost. We're not on any major route, Tella said, more to herself than to him. We're not worth their fuel. Lon's voice cracked. Maybe we are to them. Maybe it's a message. Tella finally turned, and the lines on her face looked carved. How long? 36 hours, give or take. Their drive signatures are loud. Tella stared at the horizon as if the sand could answer her. Get me the council channel. Lon hesitated. They'll ignore it. They always, then we make it impossible to ignore. The colony's Come Suite sat under layers of shielding and dust filters, a place designed for storms, not salvation. It smelled of overheated circuitry and old coffee. Tella stood before the transmitter, like it was a firing line. Send the emergency designation, she ordered. Not a request. A distress call? Lon typed with shaking fingers. The screen flickered. A pale council emblem appeared. Then the cold prompt of bureaucracy. State emergency classification. Tella leaned in and spoke. Her voice was low, raw, and steady. This is Governor Telemaris of Kestrel Reach. We are under imminent threat of pirate fleet assault. We request immediate assistance. We are a council-recognized colony world. We pay dues. We adhere to your charters. We have no defense fleet and minimal orbital capability. She paused. Let her breath be heard. Will not survive without intervention. She made herself say the next part. This is a last desperate call for help. Lon hit send. The distress packet screamed into the void. For a few seconds, Tella almost believed the universe might answer. Then the comm screen returned the most familiar thing in the galaxy. Delay. A polite automated acknowledgement. No promise. No timeline. No ship scrambled on her behalf. Just a stamped receipt. Your message has been received. Lon's eyes shone. That's it? Tella's jaw clenched. That's it from them. Governor, he began and stopped, because there was no version of this where he could finish the sentence. Tella turned away from the screen and looked at the colony schedules, the harvest projections, the school rosters. All the small, fragile proof that Kestrel Reach existed. We prepare, she said. We harden shelters. We evacuate farms into the domes. We get people underground, and if they land, Tella's gaze sharpened into something old and sharp. Then we make them pay for every meter. Lon flinched. He was young enough to still believe in clean endings. Tela no longer had that luxury dot in orbit. The colony's few satellites drifted, blind and outdated. The defense grid consisted of 2 rail cannon emplacements. That had been installed when the colony was founded and never fully upgraded, because upgrades cost money and money went to worlds the council actually cared about. Somewhere in the dark, the pirates were coming like a storm with engines, and somewhere farther still, the council was doing what it always did for minor worlds. Nothing. Asterisk asterisk. Chapter 2. Probationary. Members ... The council chamber was a cathedral built for ego. Tiered rings of seats rose around a central dais where the speaker sat beneath a floating lattice of light, every beam angled to make them look taller. Flags drifted in controlled air currents. Translators hummed softly, turning 1,000 languages into one tired protocol. Archivist Selm sat 2 rows down from the observer's alcove, stylus poised, recording minutes that no one would read unless disaster struck. The emergency notice from Kestrel. Reach had arrived an hour ago. Speaker Allen. Dree regarded it with the expression of someone reading a complaint about noise violations. A minor colony, Allen said. Outer edge. Population under 1 million. Contribution is negligible. A delegate with fins and jeweled eyes made a dismissive gesture. Pirate activity has increased on the fringe. Unfortunate, but predictable. Another voice clicking in metallic through the translator. Our nearest patrol is 4 jumps away. Diverting them compromises lanes that matter. Selm's stylus paused. The phrase lanes that matter would look ugly in history. Allen's gaze swept the chamber. Is there any pressing reason to expend council assets on Kestrel Reach? Silence, then murmurs of agreement. Say Lane raised a hand, not because they believed it would help, but because they could not stay quiet. Speaker, Selm said, voice polite. If we let pirates openly annihilate council recognized colonies, our legitimacy, Allen interrupted smoothly, rests on stability. Stability rests on prioritization. We cannot be everywhere. Selm swallowed. Then perhaps a call to the newer members. Allen's eyes narrowed with faint annoyance. You mean the probationary species? Several delegates rustled, amused. Which one? Someone asked. The amphibious traders? The hive minds? Sellen's mouth went dry. The humans. The chamber reacted like someone had released a Mildador. Humans had joined the council only recently, a small blue planet species with a reputation for improvisation and reckless ambition. Their tech was functional rather than elegant. Their ships lacked the smooth aesthetic that council navies prized. They were, in council gossip, a species that tried too hard. Allen tilted their head. The humans are on probation precisely because they have not yet demonstrated proper restraint. Selm held their ground. Restraint might not be the priority when pirates are about to strike a civilian colony. A few delegates chuckled .AULO and tapped to control. A hologram appeared, a human ship designation, a still image of a gray hull with sharp angles and visible repair welds. It looked like a tool, not a sculpture. Very well, Allen said. We will forward the distress call. If the humans wish to squander their energy playing heroes, they may do so. Selm's stylus scraped. Allen added, almost lazily, it will be educational. Educational for whom? Selm wondered. They watched as the distress packet rerouted to a probationary channel, and somewhere far from the council's polished chamber, on a ship that smelled like metal and coffee and recycled air, a human captain received a message that the council had already filed under unlikely to matter. Captain Mara. Vance read the distress call twice, not because she didn't understand it, because she did. The HSS Caldera was not a flagship. It was a medium cruiser, refurbished from an old hull, upgraded in patches. its corridors painted 3 different shades, because supply deliveries never matched, but it had teeth, and it had a crew that had learned how to survive being underestimated. Lieutenant Sato stood beside her on the bridge, hands behind his back, eyes moving over the incoming data like it was a puzzle he'd been waiting for. Kestrel Reach, he said. Etch Colony. Council isn't sending anyone. Mara's mouth tightened. Of course they aren't. Chief Okoi leaned against a console, arms folded. How bad? Sato flicked 2 fingers. A projection bloomed. Drive signatures, mass estimates, formation patterns. Okoi whistled softly. That's not a raid. That's his statement. Mara tapped the console. How far are we? Sato did the math in his head. With burn and a risky jump chain, we can make orbit in 30 hours. Maybe less if we don't care about the paint. Okoi grinned, all teeth. We never care about the paint. Mara stared at the distress message again. We will not survive without intervention. The bridge went quiet. Then Mara said, plot it. Sato's eyebrows rose. Captain, the council didn't order us. They forwarded the call, Mara said. That's enough. Okoi straightened. Rules of engagement? Mara looked at the tactical overlay. A pirate fleet. Civilian targets. A minor colony with no shield net and 2 anti-grail dash cannons. Her voice dropped. We stopped them. Sato hesitated, then nodded. Okoi's grin faded into something colder. How? Mara's eyes stayed on the projection, but her mind was already moving in angles. We do what humans do best, she said. Sato's lips twitched. Overreact. Mara didn't smile. We improvise, she corrected. And we make it so painful they never try this again. Okoi's voice turned soft, almost gentle. For the pirates. For anyone watching, Mara said. The caldera turned, engines flaring dot in the deep dark. The ship accelerated toward a dot on a map nobody cared about. And for the first time in a long time, Kestrel Reach's distress call wasn't just being acknowledged. It was being answered. Chapter 3. The Brine King Comes. Pirate Admiral Hark called himself the Brine King. Though no one in his fleet had ever seen an ocean. His flagship, Salt Crown, was a grotesque thing, a scavenged battleship stitched together from the corpses of a dozen nations' technology. Armor plates didn't match. Heat vents pulsed like infected wounds. Its hull bore trophy markings in 100 styles. The graffiti of conquest. Hark liked spectacle. He stood on his bridge, draped in a long coat that shimmered with reactive scales, and watched Kestrel Reach grow on the main display. Such a small world, he purred. His first mate, a scarred Virax named Jill, clicked their jaw. Scans show minimal orbital defense. Hark spread his arms. Then we teach them what the council refuses to teach. Jill tilted their head. Why here? There are richer targets. Hark's smile widened. Because it is small. Because it is ignored. When a weak world screams and no one comes, every other weak world learns to stop screaming. Jill's gaze flicked to the sensor console. We intercepted their distress call. Hark chuckled. Let them beg. He turned, voice rising for the whole bridge. Prepare the fleet. No quick kill. No clean end. We take their ports. We take their domes. We take their children and sell their futures. The bridge crew roared approval. Hark lifted a hand. And we leave one survivor. Jill frowned. Why? Hark's eyes gleamed. To deliver the message. The fleet spread like a net around the planet. Engines burning bright on Kestrel Reach's surface. The sky began to fill with unnatural stars. Tella, Maris watched from a bunker viewport as streaks of light crossed the heavens. People huddled behind her, whispering prayers in languages they barely remembered. Lon stood at her side, hands clenched. They're here, he said. Tella's voice was flat. I can see that. The comms officer turned from the console, face pale. Governor. Pirate broadcast incoming. The bunker speakers crackled, and then Hark's voice poured into the room like oil. People of Kestrel Reach, he said, theatrical, amused. I am Admiral Hark, Brand King of the Salt Fleet. Your council has abandoned you. Your calls have gone unanswered. Your tears are not worth fuel. A pause. A smile heard through the sound. Open your domes and surrender. Or watch your world become a lesson. The broadcast cut. A child began to cry. A parent hushed them, voice shaking. Lon's nails dug into his palms. We can't fight that. Tella stared at the dark ceiling overhead, as if she could see through rock to the ships above. No, she said. We can't. The bunker felt suddenly too small for the weight of the sky dot. Then the comms officer's console chirped. A new signal dot, unidentified dot approaching. Fast out the officer blinked. Governor. Something just translated into the system. Not a pirate. Tella leaned forward. Council? The officer's mouth parted. No, it's broadcasting on open channels. The speakers clicked. A different voice filled the bunker, calm and human. Translated into Vayari with a slight lag. This is Captain Mara Vance of the human ship Caldera. Kestrel Reach, we received your distress call. Tella's breath caught so hard it hurt. The voice continued, steady as a heartbeat. We're in system. We're between you and the pirates. A pause, then almost conversational. Sorry we're late. Had to convince the council that you're real? The bunker erupted in disbelief. Laughter mixed with sobs. Lon stared at the speaker like it was a miracle that had learned English. Tella swallowed, voice shaking as she keyed the mic. Captain Vance, she said. You shouldn't be here. A beep. We know, the human replied. But we are. Tella closed her eyes for 1 second. The closest she'd come to praying in years. When she opened them, she looked older and fiercer. Then, she said, Welcome to Kestrel Reach. Chapter 4. The Human Way of Saying No. The Caldera slid into orbit like a knife. Pirate ships turned, confused at first. A lone cruiser arriving wasn't unusual. A lone cruiser arriving on purpose was. Hark's bridge erupted with chatter. A single ship, Jill said, incredulous. Human make. Hark leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Humans? Here? A comms tech hissed. They're broadcasting. Open channel. Hark gestured grandly. Put it through. Mara Vance appeared on the pirate main display, seated in a plain command chair. No jeweled crown. No dramatic lighting. Just a woman in a worn uniform with a patch on her shoulder that had been stitched twice. Her eyes met the camera like it owed her money. Admiral Hark, she said, as if greeting a colleague in a meeting. You're out of position. Hark laughed. Little human, this world is mine. Mara's gaze didn't move. No, Hark's smile sharpened. Do you know who I am? Yes, Mara said. You're a pirate who brought a fleet to bully farmers. That makes you predictable? Hark's nostrils flared. I will tear your ship apart and hang your crew in orbit. Mara nodded once, like she was acknowledging a weather report. That's a plan, she said. Here's ours. She leaned slightly forward. We're going to remove your ability to hurt anyone ever again. Hark barked laughter. With one ship? Mara's lips twitched, almost sympathetic. No, she said. With one ship, we're going to remove your confidence. The channel cut. Hark roared. Fire. Pirate ships surged forward, weapons warming. The Caldera didn't fire first. Instead, Lieutenant Sato's fingers danced across his console. He murmured, handshake. Okoye glanced over. Handshake? Pirate cum protocols, Sato said brightly. They're old, like pre-council standard old. They never update because pirates hate bureaucracy. Mara didn't look away from the tactical display. So, Sato smiled. So we're going to update them. On the pirate fleet's Cumnat, a burst of data bloomed like a virus thought at first. Nothing happened. Then pirate ships began to drift out of formation, thrusters misfiring in tiny corrections. As if the fleet had suddenly developed a nervous tic. Jill snapped, "Admiral, we're receiving conflicting navigation pings," Hark snarled. "Ignore them." But the pirates couldn't ignore physics. The caldera wasn't hacking their minds, it was hacking their assumptions. Sato's code didn't take control in the dramatic sense, it did. Something worse, it convinced their computers that their own sensors were lying. Pirate destroyer turned slightly to avoid an obstacle that wasn't there and rammed the flank of a sister ship. A fighter wing launched, then aborted, then launched again. Trapped in an endless loop of contradictory commands, weapons arrays refused to lock because their target coordinates kept shifting by fractions of a degree. "Captain," Sato said, still cheerful, "they're going to start blaming each other in about 30 seconds. Mara exhaled. "Good. Phase 2. Dr. Rick's voice came over the intercom from engineering. "Phase 2 is ready, Captain. I still think this is unethical." Okoi snorted. "You say that every time you do something cool." Rook sounded offended. "I say it because it's true." Mara's eyes tracked the pirate flagship. "Deploy," she said. From the caldera's belly, a cloud of objects spilled into space. They weren't missiles. They weren't drones with guns. They were small, ugly spheres, each no bigger than a human head. Each with reflective foil that glimmered like fish scales. Lane, watching via council relay far away, would later write, "It looked like someone had thrown a bag of stars." The pirate sensors screamed, "Debris field." Someone shouted on Hark's bridge. Jill barked, "No, that's deliberate." Hark slammed a fist on the rail. "Shoot them." Pirate cannons fired into the cloud. And the spheres exploded into glittering mist. Not shrapnel. Not plasma. Chaff, engineered on a human budget, designed to do one thing perfectly: turn a battle space into nonsense. Every pirate targeting system lit up with false returns. Thousands of them. Ghost ships, phantom torpedoes, impossible vectors. The pirates fired anyway, because that's what fear does. They burn their own ammunition into empty darkness. Mara watched. Expression unreadable. Okoi murmured, almost reverent, "They're panicking." Mara's voice stayed calm. "They're wasting time." Sato's eyes flicked. "And heat. Their guns are running hot. Their capacitors are draining." Mara nodded. "Then we take away their exit?" "Exit?" Okoi asked. Mara pointed. "Jump points. They can't run if we break their geometry." Sato blinked. "Captain, you can't break." Mara looked at him. "Kenji, we're human. We can break anything if we're willing to pay the bill." Rook's voice returned, strained. "Captain, the bill is going to be large." Mara's answer was immediate. "Charge it." The caldera surged forward, straight into the chaff cloud. Its hull scraping glitter like rain on steel. Pirate ships tried to track it and failed. To them, it was everywhere and nowhere. A predator hidden in a fog of their own confusion. Then the caldera fired. Not on ships. At space. A pulse shot out. A tight beam that stabbed toward the region where pirate ships would normally align for a coordinated jump. The beam struck an invisible point, and space seemed to twitch. Lane, watching from the council feed, would later struggle to describe it without metaphor. It was as if the fabric of the dark had been pinched. Pirate ships, attempting to spool drives, suddenly found their calculations wrong. Not slightly, catastrophically. One cruiser tried anyway. It tore itself in half. Not from a human weapon, but from a jump attempt through corrupted math. The debris field was silent. Drifting. Hark stared, fury turning to something like disbelief. What did they do? He whispered. Jill's voice was tight. They just denied the jump corridor. Hark snarled, refusing to let fear settle. Then we kill them here. All ships. Concentrate fire on the human. But concentration required coordination, and humans had just turned coordination into a luxury the pirates no longer possessed. Okoy's voice came over Mara's shoulder. Boarding team ready. Mara's eyes narrowed. Not yet. Okoy frowned. Captain, we can take their flagship. End this. We will, Mara said. But first, we make sure the rest of the fleet sees what happens when you bring terror to civilians. Sada's grin was gone now, replaced by a cold focus. They'll remember. Murray's tone softened just a fraction. That's the point. Chapter 5, Mercy as a weapon. Hark, furious, ordered his fleet inward. If they couldn't jump away, they would crush the human ship by mass. The pirate formation collapsed into a swarm. The caldera moved like it was dancing to music, only it could hear. Sato fed. Mara constant micro-updates, vector shifts, heat signatures, the tiny tells of a ship about to fire. Rook balanced the power load like he was juggling knives. Okoy stood ready with her boarding team. Armored and silent, faces hidden behind visors. Mara waited. Then she spoke. Open broadcast, she said. Sato hesitated. To pirates? To everyone, Mara replied. Sato keyed it. Mara's voice went out on every channel the pirates had, and every civilian receiver on Kestrel Reach. This is Captain Mara Vance of the human ship Caldera, she said. A pirate gunship fired. Missing by a kilometer. We could destroy this fleet, Mara continued, as if the gunship hadn't tried. We have the tools. Another pirate ship fired. Its shot clipped a chaff sphere, detonating into more glitter. Mara's voice stayed even. But we're probationary members of the council, she said. And we're here to demonstrate that we can exercise restraint. Okoy muttered, oh no. Mara's mouth twitched. Pirate fleet, Mara said. You have 5 minutes to stand down. Shut down weapons. Broadcast surrender codes. Drift. Hark, hearing it on his bridge, laughed so hard his scales rippled. 5 minutes. He crowed. Little human, you think you can offer me mercy? Mara's reply was immediate. No, she said. I'm offering it to your crews. Hark's smile faltered. Mara continued. You're about to learn something about humans. We don't have to hate you to stop you. She paused, letting the translation lag catch up, making sure the meaning landed. We can do it anyway. Sound stylus froze mid-stroke in the council chamber, watching the feed. The delegates around them leaned forward, some intrigued, others annoyed. Alwindry looked bored. Posturing. Then the caldera did something that didn't look like posturing. Rook's voice crackled on Mara's private channel. Captain, capacitor banks are at threshold. Mara nodded. Do it. Rook sighed like a man stepping off a cliff. Deploying the null lance. Alwindry sat up slightly. What? Selm's eyes widened. That's not council tech. On the battlefield? The caldera fired a second beam, wider this time, sweeping across the pirate swarm like a lighthouse dot where it touched. Pirate ships didn't explode. Their lights went out. Not permanently, not catastrophically, just off. Power grids collapsed into safe mode. Weapon systems shut down. Drive spools UNLA TCHED. Ships went dark and drifting, alive but helpless. Okoy exhaled slowly. That's mean? Sato's voice carried awe. It's an EMP variant, but tuned, targeted. It's like turning off a room by flipping each individual breaker. Rook's tone was miserable pride. I told you it was unethical. Mara's eyes stayed on the pirate flagship, which was still lit, still angry. Hark's fleet. Moments before a storm, had become a graveyard of drifting hulks. Hark's comes board lit with panicked calls. Admiral, we've lost power. We can't fire. My ship is dead, Hark snarled, grabbing the mic. Restore power? It's a trick. Jill's eyes were wide. Admiral, it's not a trick. It's precision suppression. Hark's throat worked. Humans don't have this kind of... Mara cut back in on an open channel. 2 minutes, she said. Hark's fury twisted into desperation. All fighters. He screamed, launch. Ram them if you must. But fighter bays on dark ships couldn't launch. Magnetic rails without power were just metal. Only the Salt Crown responded. Vomiting a wing of fighters like insects, Mara watched them come. Okoy's hand hovered. Near her boarding team's ready signal, Mara shook her head once. Let them, she said. Sato frowned. Captain, that's a lot of fighters. Mara's voice was quiet. Yes, she said. And they're about to see why humans don't measure power the way pirates do. Meaning? Sato asked. Mara pointed at the fighter's approach vector. They're using external comm beacons to coordinate, she said. They need each other to be brave. Sato's smile returned, thin as a blade. Oh, he keyed his console, and a new signal rolled out. No noise. Not a jam, a message. Every pirate fighter cockpit display flickered. A human face appeared. Not Mara's this time, but Okoy's, visor up. Eyes steady. Hi, Okoy said pleasantly. Broadcasting directly into their helmets. The pirates jerked. Startled, Okoy continued, voice warm as a teacher. You can still turn around. You're not trapped in this. Your admiral is. You don't have to die for his pride. A beat. Then Okoy smiled, and it was not kind. But if you keep coming, we're going to board your flagship and put him in cuffs on live broadcast. The pirate fighters wavered. They were raiders, not soldiers. Courage built on cruelty and easy wins. A human offering them an exit did something weird to their brains. Some peeled away immediately. Engines flaring in retreat. Hark screamed at them over fleet comms, his voice cracking with rage. But Sato's earlier update ensured his commands arrived delayed, distorted. Or not at all. More fighters peeled away. Only a handful continued forward. The most loyal, or the most terrified of Hark, Mura's voice returned to the open channel. 1 minute. Hark's breathing sounded loud on his bridge. Jill's voice was low. Admiral, we should surrender. Hark spun, eyes wild. Surrender to probationary animals? Jill held his gaze. Surrender to survival. Hark raised a weapon. Jill didn't flinch. For a moment, the pirate flagship's bridge became a smaller battle than the one outside and then Hark's. Cum screamed with an incoming. Ping. Not from his own fleet, from the council. Relay. Allendry's face appeared on a side screen. Irritation on display. Pirate Admiral Hark, Allen said coolly. Stand down. The council will not negotiate. Hark laughed, breathless and unhinged. Now you speak? Now that humans embarrass you? Allen's eyes narrowed. Your fleet is under human engagement. Surrender to them and face council justice. Hark turned his gaze toward the main display. Where the caldera hovered like a quiet threat, his pride snapped like bone. He keyed his own broadcast. Overriding everything, flooding all channels. Council. Hark roared. Witness this. Witness the fate of your minor worlds. He slammed his hand down on a control. The Salt Crown's main weapon, a spinal cannon built from stolen tech, began to charge. Jill shouted, Admiral. That will overload. Hark didn't care. He aimed at Kestrel. Reached. Not at the human ship. On the planet. At the domes full of families. Telemuris. Listening in the bunker, felt her blood turn to ice. Mara saw it too. Her calm shattered into something sharper. Okoy, she said. Okoy's voice was immediate. Yes, ma'am. Board them, Mara said. Now, Okoye grinned, savage and bright. With pleasure. Chapter 6. The shock human boarding pods were not elegant. They were bullets with doors. Okoye's team launched in 6 pods, streaking through glittering chaff, slamming into the pirate flagship's hull with brute force clamps. Cutters bit into metal. The pirate ship's corridor. Alarms wailed Dot inside the first pod. Okoye checked her team with a glance. 4 Marines. 1 medic, all breathing steady. Rules? A Marine asked. Okoye's voice was low. We're the good guys. Don't forget that. The Marine nodded, then added, and if they forget? Okoye's smile was humorless. Then we remind them. The hatch blew. Smoke and sparks. Okoye moved first, fast and precise. Human armor was scarred and mismatched, each plate customized. Each soldier carrying gear that looked more like industrial tools than weapons. They met the first pirate squad at a junction. The pirates fired wild. Panicked shots. Human shields caught the blasts. Energy dispersing in blue ripples. Okoye's team didn't return. Lethal fire. They fired stunned slugs that hit like trucks and dropped pirates twitching to the deck. A pirate screamed. Trying to crawl away, the human medic grabbed them by the collar, dragged them behind cover, and slapped a seal patch over the pirate's bleeding shoulder. Stay down, the medic said briskly. You'll live if you stop trying to be dramatic. The pirate stared, confused. As if kindness was a new kind of gun, Okoye advanced. They moved toward the bridge like a fact. Behind them, Sato continued to strangle pirate coordination with invisible hands. On the caldera, Mara watched the salt-crowned spinal cannon charge. Time? She asked. Rook's voice was tense. Seconds. Mara's jaw clenched. Sato, on it, he said. Trying to lock their firing sequence? Mara's eyes narrowed. Don't try. Sato blinked. Captain? Mara's voice went cold. Break it. Sato's fingers snapped across his console. Deep in the pirate flagship systems, a human-made packet hit the weapon control core like a crowbar to glass stop the spinal cannon's charge. Spike surged uncontrolled. Hark. On his bridge, snarled in triumph as his display read firing solution acquired. Then it read error. Then it read overcurrent. Jill shouted. Admiral, shut it down. Hark slammed the emergency override. Nothing happened. The cannon's charge field began to collapse inward, not releasing as a beam, but feeding back into its own capacitors, a cascade. A runaway. Hark's eyes widened. For the first time, fear pierced him. What? The cannon didn't explode. Humans didn't let it. Rook's voice came through Mara's channel, tight with effort. No lances in resonance. I'm catching the surge. Mara's eyes widened slightly. You're what? Rook sounded like a man holding up a collapsing building with his hands. I'm using their field to absorb their failure. It's going to cook our banks. Mara didn't hesitate. Cook them, she said. The caldera's lights flickered. The deck vibrate. Spilled from the pirate cannon into the human ship's suppression, field like lightning into a grounded rod. The Salt Crown's spinal weapon went dead. The planet lived in the bunker. Telemaris sagged against the wall, breath tearing out of her like she'd been punched. Lon whispered, They stopped it. Tella's eyes burned. Yes. Above, Okoye reached the bridge doors. 2 pirates stood guard. Trembling, Okoye didn't fire. She simply walked forward. Weapon lowered but ready. The pirates hesitated, expecting cruelty. Okoye spoke, voice level. Step aside, she said. You don't want to be in the room when we arrest your boss. 1. Pirate swallowed hard and moved. The other tried to raise their gun. Okoye's teammate shot the weapon out of the pirate's hands with a stun slug that hit the wrist like a hammer. The pirate fell. Screaming, the human medic knelt immediately. Hold still. Okoye glanced back at her team. See? She said, good guys. Then she kicked open the bridge doors. Hark stood at the center, scales shimmering with sweat, weapon raised toward the entrance. He looked like a king in a room full of broken promises. Okoye stepped in. Calm as sunrise, Hark snarled, voice ragged. Human, you don't understand. The council will. Okoye cut him off. We understand plenty, she said. We understand you aimed at a civilian world because you were losing. Hark's eyes darted. I am the brain. Okoye moved. 1 step. 2. A pirate fired. Missed. Okoye's gauntlet slammed into Hark's weapon hand. Breaking his grip, he roared and swung with his other hand. Okoye ducked, drove an elbow into his ribs, and the brine king folded with a wet gasp. Okoye pinned him to the deck with a knee and pulled out restraints. Hark spat, desperate. You're probationary. You have no authority. Okoye leaned close, voice quiet enough to be intimate. You're right, she said. We don't have authority. She clicked the cuffs shut. We have capability. Then she looked up at the bridge camera. Still active, still broadcasting to every pirate ship, every council screen, every civilian receiver on Kestrel Reach. Okoye lifted Hark's face toward it. Pirate Admiral Hark, she said clearly. You are under arrest by the Human Systems Service, acting in defense of a council-recognized civilian colony. Hark's eyes burned with hatred and humiliation. Okoye continued. All pirate vessels, she said, shut down and drift. Medical aid will be provided. Resist, and we will remove your ships from Space One system at a time until you get bored of suffering. A beat, then she added, almost friendly, choose. Across the pirate fleet, drifting dark, crews looked at their powerless consoles and the live feed of their admiral in cuffs. One by one, surrender codes blinked into being. On Kestrel Reach, people cried dot in the council chamber. Silence fell like a curtain. Speaker Allendry stared at the feed, their mouth slightly open. Sound stylists shook as they wrote with their eyes, could barely accept. The humans did not destroy the fleet. They turned it off. They boarded the flagship. They arrested the admiral. They offered medical aid. A delegate finally whispered, voice thin with disbelief. They could have annihilated them. Sound didn't look away from the screen. Yes, Sound said quietly. Allen's voice was strained. This is disproportionate capability for a probationary species. Sound's reply came without hesitation. No, they said. This is a controlled capability. Mara Vance appeared again on the council feed, face lit by the glow of damaged systems and hard choices. Council speaker, she said, voice level. Kestrel Reach is secure. Pirate fleet neutralized. Survivors will be processed. Allen cleared their throat. Captain Vance, your actions will be reviewed. Mara nodded once. They should be, she said. Because you need to understand something. She leaned slightly forward. We were told we were insignificant, Mara said. So we acted like it. Her eyes hardened. Stop confusing our patience for weakness. The feed ended dot in the bunker on Kestrel Reach. Telemar sank onto a bench, hands shaking. Lon stared at her. Governor, what do we do now? Tella looked up at the dusty ceiling, listening to the quiet that had replaced the sound of incoming death. Her voice was hoarse. Now? She said dot, she almost laughed, but it came out like a sob. Now we remember who answered when the council didn't. Epilogue. The new category days later. Council couriers arrived with polite apologies and forms for reconstruction. Aid. The forms were thick. The apologies were thin. Speaker Allendry addressed the chamber with a carefully neutral tone, as if tone could erase shame. The council recognizes the humans. Effective response. Seln, standing beside their archive station, watched as Mara Vance entered the chamber in person. Uniform clean but not ceremonial. She stood without bowing. Allen's gaze flicked to her. "Cautious now, Captain Vance," Allen said. "Your species has demonstrated." Unexpected, Mara raised a hand. "Not rude, just done. Don't," she said. The chamber froze. Mara's voice was calm, but every word landed. "Don't say unexpected. You didn't look. You didn't listen. You decided what we were because it was convenient." Allen's face tightened. "We will reassess humanity's probationary status." Mara nodded. "Good." Selm watched the delegates shift. "Uneasy. Mara continued, softer but sharper, "and reassess what you call minor worlds," she said. "Because pirates didn't pick Kestrel Reach by accident." A murmur rippled. Mara's gaze swept them. "They picked it because you taught them it was safe to," she said. Silence held. Then Sound spoke. Voice steady. "The archivist concurs," Sound said, and felt the weight of that sentence in their bones. "This record will not be kind." Allen looked as if they had swallowed something bitter. Mara's expression didn't change. "We're not asking you to be kind," she said. "We're asking you to be better." She turned to leave at the chamber doors. She paused and looked back. "For the record," she added, almost casually, "the fleet you saw us stop, that was a patrol response, not a war response." Allen's eyes widened. Mara offered a small, polite smile. "Don't make us send a war response," she said. And then she was gone, boots clicking on polished stone, leaving the council with a new category to fear. Not an enemy, not an ally, not minor. Human.